morning, Codger Biker here. Just having a little ride out. Now I did call my last video The Meaning of Life Part 1. Don't quite know why I called it that. I was kind of thinking of the History of the World by The Damned. History of the World Part 1. I don't know if they ever did a Part 2. But anyway, as I called it Part 1, I suppose there ought to be a Part 2. But before I get onto that, childish, but it's nice. I'm riding today with the faint whiff of ACF 50. I did ACF 50, the bike, yesterday. We've actually had some nice weather. So I washed the bike and did the old ACF 50. Quite a fiddly bike to do, really. There's lots of little nooks and crannies, and I do believe there is a, not an issue, but a feature, should we call it, of the KTM and probably some other new bikes, that the nuts rust. Rusty nuts. I've heard it's because of EU regulations on the coatings of the nuts that but I don't know. Anyway, I haven't noticed any rusty nuts so far, and we'll see what the ACF 50 can do with that, and I'll report back on that at a later date, because if it's going to rust, it'll be this time of the year. We've had salt on the roads, very, very wet weather. Storm Eric came over last week. Usual stuff. It's England. Right. So, the meaning of life. Well, that won't take long to deal with. The last video I said the meaning of life is basically get an enthusiasm or two and get on with them. Now, if you've studied philosophy, which I suppose some people may have if they listen to this, you'll know that in the Western tradition, that's never enough. You have to develop a system of philosophy, and so that it can then be taken apart, criticised, modified by other people, and eventually thrown on the scrap heap. But I think that's probably where it goes wrong. It's a little bit like getting a GS, which for people who don't know is a, well, in inverted commas, off-road bike. It's a great big thing, and putting that into you know, MotoGP and expecting it to win. It's not going to win. It's not designed for that. So people might say, oh, get an enthusiasm and get on with it. What if you're a psychopath and you like killing people? Well, true. That wouldn't be good. No one would say it would be. But that's not the function of the notion. The notion is for most people, for your average guy living your life, and gal, or transgender, or LGBTQ+, whatever. It's the same for most ordinary people. Obviously, if you've got a mental illness, that would have to be tackled first. Then, of course, the question of priorities, you know, and responsibilities. We've all got a life that we have to lead. We've got responsibilities. If your enthusiasm is to go off riding around the world, say on motorcycles, then you've got to do it responsibly. You can't just take off. By and large, it holds. The problem with Western philosophy is it's kind of every sort of system starts off with something relatively simple, and then they overcomplicate it. It's like stepping out onto the ice of a great lake. You take the first step safe enough, second step safe enough, third step safe enough, fourth, and you might take 50 steps, then one day you fall through the ice, and they go, oh, well, that system's no good then. No, don't go out that far on the ice with it. I doubt there's going to be a single meaning of life that covers everything. For most people, I don't know what this road is. This is a good place to practice, actually. pull over here and just have a look at the ACF 50, see whether it's finished steaming away. It was still steaming this morning. I left it for 15 minutes, but it was still steaming. So I don't know if you can see that, but the ACF 50 has gone on. There's a little bit dripping down the exhaust there, and you can see it's shiny in places, particularly on the engine. Can't see any rusty nuts yet, but apparently it can happen with these newer bikes. The bike itself's done 150 miles only. I just haven't been able to get out with the weather, so I'm hoping the next couple of days to do a few more miles. Enjoying the bike. It's loosening up a little bit. I think the engine's quite tight when you get them. It's not got a lot of mass to it, so it needs to free up to get the smoothness out of it. I still find it a little bit frantic at times, particularly in street mode, but that's probably just me. The throttle response is quite quick, but I'm getting used to it. I am still saving like mad for a 790 Adventure. I hope Gene Chandler didn't hear that, so I've just stepped back a bit. But I'm trying to be sensible with that and wait a couple of years, or wait a year at least. It's not going to happen, but try and wait a year and see whether there's any issues comes out with the 790 Adventure. Meantime, getting used to this engine, which is similar. I have to fill up with fuel later. I did find the fuel cap quite tight on it, hoping that will loosen up at some point. Tyres are well scrubbed in, and I find them great. Possibly not going to last very long, but there's plenty of grip on them. So as a bike then, what do I think? Well, in the last year I've not ridden so many bikes. I've ridden little 125s, which, you know, do what they do. Kawasaki Z650, which I felt very comfortable on, but I didn't really like it. I couldn't really say why. Always felt like there was some sort of slack when you opened it up. I think that's probably just maybe just, you know, could be a loose. The one I was using had a loose chain, maybe, although it didn't look like it did. Or maybe it was worn at the cush mount at the back. I don't know. Nice friendly bike to ride apart from that. Then I had my Africa Twin, which I absolutely adored, but in my opinion, unless you're 6 foot tall, too top heavy with a full tank of fuel, probably best avoided. Not on the road, it's fine on the road, or on a field, I suppose, or down a lane, but just manoeuvring it around, just stopping in traffic. Live in a city, traffic's very heavy, some days gusts of wind, potholes, worn streets. You put your foot down and it's 6 inches lower to the ground than you thought, and the bike could be difficult to hold up. And the one time it did fall over, I wasn't actually moving, I couldn't pick it up, so for me that's just, they're too heavy. I've never ridden a GS. I believe the weight on those is a lot lower, but it's just a hobby for me, this. I can't justify that amount of money for one of those. Having said that, these are expensive enough. I have to say, it's lovely today with the heated grips, really doing their job. The KTM heated grips, they work. I mean, I know Oxford hot grips are the ones to have. These work as long as you have them on the highest setting. I just have them on red, which is at the top. They have 4 settings, but I just leave them on red, which from trial and error seems to be the hottest, and the hottest is just about right. You wouldn't want to be any lower. Just use the quick shifter there. Now, if you've never used a quick shifter, and I know everyone's watching this, Garen, we've all used them, well, I hadn't. and they still catch me out. The quick shifter on this is very good. For those that don't know, the quick shifter is when you go up a gear without using the clutch. Now the only mistake I make is I tend to close the throttle and then use it, which is not a good idea. You're supposed to keep the throttle open and then just up the gear like that. I just did one there, and there's another one. And the auto blipper, close the throttle and go down. Now I didn't know these things, so I've discovered them myself. So to use an auto blipper, close the throttle, that's on the way down, clutchless gear change, and on the way up, keep your throttle open. Once you get used to it, it's fantastic. The handling of this bike is tremendous. Phenomenal. Much as I love the Africa Twin, it couldn't go around corners like that. So far I would suggest the limitations on this bike, which are well documented elsewhere, are true, and they are that the suspension's quite hard, which is perfect when you're travelling at speed. It's quite hard if you're riding around town at 20-30 miles an hour over pothole roads, speed bumps and the like. And so far I still find the throttle response, I'm in street today, and the fueling a little bit annoying more than anything. I mean, it works, but maybe I just need to smooth off. I'm doing 30 there in third. You can feel it doesn't really like, it's not happy doing that. Africa Twin would go along in 6th gear at 30, which I didn't like, but it seemed quite happy to do it. Once you pick up the speed though, it's happy as anything. Now I've got a software version 0.23 I think, or 0.2 something, I can't remember exactly. When I have it serviced, once I reach 600 miles, I'm going to ask them to upgrade it to version 1. Don't know whether that'll make any difference or not, I'll report back then. If you're looking at my vlog expecting to see lots of different bikes, well, you're going to be disappointed. Can't believe I just said the word vlog. Am I a vlogger? I'm kind of just going to keep this bike till I swap to the 790 Adventure and do kind of a long-term thing with it. So I've been said about those KTM hand warmers, they're really hot today actually. I might have to turn them down. It's 9 degrees out and my hands are very hot. I'm gonna drop them to amber. So maybe if you give them a chance to warm up, although it's not the coldest day today, so that's probably got something to do with it. No wind today. Very calm, dry, ideal really. The fuel gauge on this bike's a little bit odd. I filled it up the other day and it took a little while to register. Sometimes it looks like it's empty, but again I think that's been documented by other people. If you look at the range, it says 120 miles. That seems to be pretty consistent and probably the thing to go with in terms of how much fuel you've got. So you've got a small tank. It's one drawback, I do need to go to the petrol station more frequently. So that just gives me an excuse to go out really. In the winter I find it a little bit tedious having to get all the gear out and put it all on. However, I wear the gear in the summer, so I don't know why I blame the winter for that. I think it's just an excuse. Once you get out, it's brilliant. Hear the enthusiasm. I was enthused. Okay, that's about it for today. Just remember, Get your enthusiasms, get on with it. With responsibility, of course. That's it, don't analyse it too much. Have a great day. Good morning to you. Codger Biker is out. Okay, so I've just filled up with fuel and the range is gradually going up. See a full gauge and the range has gone up to 160 miles, 170 miles. It's taking its time. Go up into fifth, low revs, see whether it will go any further than a 170 mile, 180 mile range. Perhaps it's some sort of algorithm based on the speed and gearing at that particular time. So it's saying 180 mile range at the moment. That's your fuel tank. Not a lot, and in well, it's got up to 190. In practice you won't get anywhere near that, I don't think. I know they claim 60 miles to the gallon, but riding around town and things, I don't think I'll get anywhere near that. Now this is the kind of road surface where the suspension struggles. Very bumpy there, very worn, not very well maintained, and you can feel every bounce and bump. Here's a typical example of where the 790 Duke is out of its comfort zone a little bit. It's not designed for it. It's got to do 20 mile an hour. It's a 20 mile an hour zone. It is often policed as well. The road surface is dreadful, so you can feel every bump. Doesn't lose momentum or anything. Doesn't bounce up and skitter around. It just feels very, very firm indeed. That combined with the fueling, I'm doing second gear, .3,000 revs, and it really doesn't like it. Sorry, it wouldn't be the greatest bike for a Mod 1 test, that's all I'm saying. Bye.